everybody. Yes, this is Startup and Innovators, our new baby at Atlanta Discuss. Like I mentioned to you, we need to recognize our people, young, old, wherever you may be. African startup, Nigerian startup, Kenyan startup, Ugandan startup. We need to recognize our people. It's not all bad news for Africa. You know, I tell you, in the United States, 7 out of 10 Black doctors are of Nigerian origin. You know, can you beat that? Go to Harvard today, Morehouse, Princeton, wherever, Nigerians, Kenyans, Ghanaians, slaying stereotype, breaking the glass ceiling. And that's why today we're bringing you another very vibrant, erudite, you know, and a very special one at that. We have for you Osita James. Osita James, welcome to Atlanta Discuss Startup and Innovators.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. Anita has told me a lot about the work that you're doing, and I've watched a couple of videos as well.
All right, fantastic. We like what you're doing too. So quickly, I mean, Osita is a techpreneur, a very vibrant techpreneur for that matter, a partner at the Blackrest law firm. The startup advisory law firm that is Blackrest has successfully advised startups across Africa in investment worth over $20 million. Wow. You know, he's the founder of Profitable Lawyer, a coaching and training company that support lawyers and firms all across the continent of Africa with their operations, their business development, and client relations, including training to create a profitable practice. Yeah, Osita teaches startup law at Joy Lavelle and has trained 3 cohorts of lawyers with Profitable Lawyers training curriculum he personally developed. You know, so there's a startup mentor at VC4 and Because International, and writes a startup development newsletter that is the building digital product. So reaching over 40,000 people, you know. He also is a tech enthusiast, clearly, and these 40,000 people include founders, investors, and tech enthusiasts annually. That's quite a coverage. Osita writes poetry, fiction in his free time. So that's what I'm talking about. You're the man for the job. Hello, Osita, once more. Welcome to Atlantic Discuss Tech and Innovators.
Thank you. When you were reading the profile, I wasn't sure you were talking about me. It always feels like that.
Well, it's yours. Don't worry, it happens. I'll tell you something. Sometimes when we record like this, you know, and I mean, 90% of the time, I always feel the recording is a bad job, that we didn't do very well. When I watch it again, it looks better. Like, oh, was that what we really did? So I understand where you're coming from. But we have a tradition. We go for the jugular straight. We don't mess around like that. Go straight to the point. So, I mean, a techpreneur, yeah? A techpreneur, you're a lawyer, you're a man of so many places. So, I mean, let's talk about business development, yeah, and your law firm. So, I mean, how do you balance your responsibilities as a techpreneur and a partner at a law firm? How do you balance? It's a lot of work.
How do I balance my responsibilities?
Yeah,
I would say that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I would say is that everyone needs a PA. Everyone actually needs like a personal assistant. Very, very important. I know that many business owners would necessarily see it as an additional expense and frown upon the idea. But I think that just having a personal assistant actually makes you more effective. So what's happened over the years is that I tend to do less and achieve more than I used to do when I was much younger. So it's more like if you take so many meetings, you will end up speaking to so many people that don't move the needle. But if you take fewer meetings with the right people, so it helps you to move the needle towards what you want to accomplish faster. And the best way to do that is to collaborate with someone that is managing your calendar, someone that ensures that what your other team members are supposed to do, that they are on track. So all you have to do is give an instruction. I want them to do this by 6 p.m. I want this content out by 3 p.m. And I want you to follow up with X contractor and Y contractor. So simply by giving out instructions and focusing on strategy, you're able to accomplish 3 to 4 times more than you would if you are trying to do it all on your own. like the worst thing that entrepreneurs hate is administrative work, because entrepreneurs are like, they want to be out there, they want to meet new people, they want to explore new ideas. So, but sometimes the execution bit of it requires administrative work. You want to create something on Excel to track your sales, or you want to be able to track whether your marketing campaign is doing well. So all those things are administrative. So the entrepreneur is likely to be excited about coming up with the idea, but they may not be so excited to execute those little administrative things that actually allow the vision to come to life. So that's how I actually balance all the responsibilities I have by leveraging team members and my personal assistants. That's actually how I do it.
Oh, fantastic. So let's talk about how you started. What's your source of inspiration? How did you get to study law, then become a techpreneur? Or did you have a mentor? Was it daddy said, or you just decided to, to do to go the whole head yourself, Because we're Africans, there's no way you will see daddy said and mommy said, that kind of thing. So what's your source of inspiration? Tell us.
So when I was much younger, my mom used to teach literature and English because she's an English major. So she had this African writer series collection. So from a very young age, around the age of 9, 10, I started reading books like Zambia Shall Be Free by Kenneth Kaunda, God's Bits of Wood, Lonely Londoners, like Chinua Achebe's books, Things Fall Apart, Arrow of God, and so on. So at that very early age, I started like seeing how like what Africa was like back when we were still under colonialism, and how people were fighting for emancipation. So that sort of inspired a certain type of spirit and the need for fighting for justice from a very young age. So by the time I finished from secondary school, it was a natural choice to choose study law, because I wanted to be part of that conversation on how to make Africa great again, something like that. And so I decided to study law, although I still explored writing. I really love writing literary works. So I was part of the literary club while still studying law. And I ended up publishing some of my stories in some international journals. But that was actually like the strong inspiration at the time when I first started to study law. And when I was done studying law, I realized that the regulations and the institutions alone can't actually help us achieve what we want to achieve. I realized that many people in Nigeria and many other African countries as well are helpless. And they're not helpless because they are choosing to be. They are helpless because the conditions they found themselves in make it very difficult for them to make proper choices. So if you're so poor that you can barely afford to eat food, the likelihood that you're going to be able to make the right choices when you're voting or the right choices when you're interacting with your fellow citizens is very low, because your base instinct is to figure out what would allow you to survive. At that level, all they're thinking of is survival. And so that's actually what led me to start trying to do business, because I wanted to build an empire so that I could teach young Africans how to build for themselves. That's part of the reason when you read my profile, you can see that I said I teach lawyers, I coach and train lawyers that want to build their own firms through the Profitable Law Firm. So I'm already carrying out the vision I had like way back. That was actually the reason I started doing business, because I feel like it's more difficult for young people to connect with an older man saying, oh, I worked very hard, I'm successful. So they will feel like, oh, I have to be as old as him before I can be successful. But I'm 28. So when people look at me and I'm building my own law firm, I have this other company, I have the other company, I've built startups. So it's more like they also feel inspired that they can also do that for themselves. So that was why I did it, because I wanted to be able to inspire other people to believe that they can change their lives for the better, that they don't have to beg people to give them money. They don't have to steal or engage in any criminal activities, that they can actually like create a business for themselves, add value to the society, and create wealth for themselves. I hope that answers your question. I feel like
Fantastic.
lawyers.
No, it's okay. So let's talk about obstacles. I mean, what you just said now is straightforward, fantastic, and all that. But what were the obstacles you came across while trying to get all these things done?
I think the biggest obstacle is for everyone is usually themselves. For me, I think I was the biggest obstacle because I, for a very long time, did not see myself as the one that was going to be able to accomplish everything that I have accomplished. I was very grateful. I'm very grateful because I grew up with parents that are very supportive. After studying law, my dad was saying that I should go join one of his friends that is a very senior lawyer to work in his law firm, gain some experience and so on. But when I told him that I was going to do business, he was disappointed, but he supported me all the same. My mom as well is very supportive. They were there with me before I got into the Nigerian University of Technology to start studying technology and management back in 2020. So, but I finished from school in 2017. I finished my law school in 2018 because I studied at a very young age. So by 22, I was done with both law school and studying law. So I started doing business. I was running a writing company. I was in Enugu, and my parents were like, "You don't want to work in a law firm. Why don't you want to, like, maybe go to court, be like other lawyers?" But at the same time, they still supported me to do what I believed in. I think that the obstacles is yourself when you're looking at your colleagues and where they've gotten to at the point in time that you're currently working hard to build your vision and your own dreams. So you start to feel like maybe they are more successful than you are, and therefore you are a failure. I think that it's something very real. A lot of people don't like to talk about it, but it's actually what happens when you finish and then this other guy's got a job in a very big company that's paying him a lot of money. And then you on your own end, you're trying to build out your business and you're struggling to do that. And then when people have conversations and then they look at your peers and they say, oh, this one works here or the other one works there, then you don't have anything to say because you're still trying to build. So that big obstacle of trying to get over the idea that you might not be good enough to accomplish what you want to achieve is like the biggest obstacle that everyone has to face when trying to build their vision. The second thing is the environment. When I went to the UK for my master's, I realized just how much things are different when someone operates from a much more conducive environment. That's the word I would use. When I was in the UK, my productivity tripled because for the first time, there was power all the time. The internet was very good, very stable. Transportation system was also very good. I could literally just go to the library and I had access to like thousands and thousands of books. So it was almost like I would be very unfair to myself if I did not graduate with a distinction because I had a lot more resources than I had back when I was in Nigeria. So that sort of influenced the way that I was thinking about it. And it made me realize that people that are back home in Nigeria are really struggling with a lot of things because of the environment that they operate from. If basic things like transportation, water, power were all solved, I think that productivity would double simply because the environment is more conducive. Then one other challenge I would say is peer pressure. I think that we live in a generation where everybody wants everything fast. I'm talking about my generation now, the Gen Zs. We want things very fast. And then social media doesn't help because social media helps with comparison, where people start to compare themselves with their peers in different places or different countries. So Mr. A that lives in Nigeria, that is working in a good place, that could really build out his career in the next 3 years, starts looking at his colleague that just got the global talent visa to move to the UK. And then he feels like he's not successful because he's comparing himself with the friend that got to travel. He's not comparing it relatively to the fulfillment or even like the way that the other person feels, because sometimes some people travel to those countries and they're miserable because they get there and they have to like adjust because they're not used to those countries. Why someone that is already in a country that they're used to is well adjusted into the system. So no one thinks of it that way. They just sort of focus on, okay, this person traveled and I'm still here, so therefore I'm the one that is not doing well. I'm the one that is backward. So that peer pressure to leave when you really have things to do here or that peer pressure to switch your job when there's really something that you want to learn that could impact your career positively. But because everyone else is saying, oh, they're not paying you as much as they're paying the other guy, so why not just switch the job and go to somewhere else that pays you more? So the idea that money is everything pushes a lot of young people to the wrong direction. So 2-3 years down the line, you find the person working at the desk all the time. Then the last thing I would say is the last challenge I will mention is access to resources. As a startup lawyer has worked with a lot of startups over the years, the major challenge that we always get when we ask them what challenges they have, they say that if they had some funding, maybe they could be able to build out their product while exploring the markets that they're trying to build something for. And the challenge is that because they don't have so much access to resources, they end up building very subpar products, and very few of them succeed. And those that succeed always have a lot more access to resources than those that do not. Like stories of people like Kalindli that, sort of bootstrapped up until the point where he became very successful. We don't have a lot of them in Africa, people that bootstrapped to unicorn status, or people that bootstrapped to the point where their business now has millions of users. The stories are very few because we fundamentally lack access to resources. And I think that that's a major challenge to doing business in Nigeria and the rest of Africa.
Wow. I like that. I mean, I like the way you defined it, especially those 3 core obstacles, because I just went into publishing now. I have an online newspaper now, and I have a normal Atlanta Discuss where we discuss politics every Friday. So what we're doing, Startup and Innovators, is on Wednesday. Now, and I still have a day job, you understand? So can you imagine? So it's a lot, but what you said that I really appreciate is that when you're in a developed society, the ability for you to grow is better. The atmosphere is more conducive and all that. That's really true, So I mean, I can say that I'm a testament in that regard. You understand? So I agree with you. But let's talk about success story. We're still on law, we're still going to talk about tech because I'm enjoying this discussion. So can you share some success stories of firms that you have supported through your firms? Through your own law firms that you've helped, and if you can name them, it's really a nose there. We're promoting you either way, So tell us about your success story, especially in the area of law.
Okay, so when we first started, because everyone wants to hear the success story, but they don't want to hear how it performed when we started.
You can say that
I'm just going to shock everyone, especially those listening. The first year we started Blackrest, we made 300,000 naira in the entire year.
Oh wow!
So for context, that's around $140. That just for context for those that don't use naira. So we made 300,000 naira. That's around $140 in the first year of Blackrest. And one of the reasons why this happened was because we were juggling it. I was doing something else, building startups, while also doing Blackrest. So we didn't really have like a lot of time to like try to grow the law firm, and we're just trying to build our reputation in the startup ecosystem as well. So what then happened later that year is that like the next year, it was that I decided to switch and start working on Blackrest full time. So I decided to focus my energy on Blackrest, and I think that has made like all the difference. We doubled our revenue, and we grew to a certain extent, and then we doubled our revenue in 2023 and 2024. So there's been like a lot of growth. We now have retainer clients that pay us both in naira, dollars, and pounds, which significantly increases our revenue base. We even got published in the VC for Africa Venture Due book for our advisory role in advising Winich Farms. They raised $3 million. So we are the ones that advise them. So we got published as well in the African Global Directory. So that also like it sort of boosted our reputation as a firm. And then we became one of the leading startup law firms in Nigeria because of all that. So I would mention Winich Farms because Winich Farm is like one of our darling clients. They are involved in agricultural technology. So they support farmers by buying produce in bulk and using their technology tools to track the produce and transport it from the location of the farmers to different parts of Nigeria that need the food items. So they've been doing that for close to 4 years now, and we've been their lawyers since 2022. So we
Wow,
were
wow,
there
wow.
when they when they raised the first seed round, and we're also there when they raised their seed round of $3 million. So that's like one of the major success stories we've had. We've also worked with startups that engaged in e-commerce, those that did something in fintech, that's financial technology. We've advised startups of different stages and different verticals so far. I would say that one thing that just stands out as a trait for founders that we've seen that usually succeed is that those founders are very relentless in their pursuit for what they believe in. And they have a very strong vision and they have a very strong team. So like every other week, you call them, they are exploring something new. There's always something, there's always one improvement. There's always a new partnership that they're exploring. And when we see the results, we're not surprised because we've seen the trend over a period of time. So startups that want to succeed have to constantly be thinking of partnerships, people that they can leverage to scale their current product and distribution. They need to keep thinking of how to improve their current processes, as well as how legal can also help them to continue to improve. Because, for example, you have people like banks that you're trying to like have a partnership with. The banks can sneak in some funny clauses in the contract or the agreement. So if you don't have like reputable lawyers or smart lawyers working with you, you end up signing an exclusive contract with the bank, and then you're stuck with them because you've signed the contract and there's nothing you can do. You can't even take them to court because you signed the contract, but so that's just one of the things that those guys do very early, even before they raise their first rounds. Most of those type of law firms that succeed always look to get legal counsel, as well as speak to consultants, speak to mentors, so that they're sure they're making the right type of decision. So yeah, those are like some of the things that founders can take advantage of to ensure that they have the same outcomes as other successful startups.
Wow, wow. This is very impressive. So let's talk about your techpreneurship. I mean, it's a different sphere. You studied law, clearly. So, I mean, what motivated you to become a techpreneur? And what's your vision for your current ventures and your other ventures in the techpreneurship area?
So I would say that the reason why I became a techpreneur is because I wanted to figure out how to solve problems so that I could contribute to social development. I recently spoke at a TED Talk in Lautech last year where I talked about my story and why I began the EdTech that I'm still building. It's called. So I started building FO in 2019. The first thing that I did was that I was one of the Nigerian Higher Education Foundation scholars back in 2017 when I was still an undergraduate. And there were people that wanted to apply for the same scholarship. So I organized like a boot camp, invited my friends that were also scholars from that period. And then we sort of taught them how to work on their application, and as well as created opportunity for them to have a mock interview with us before they had the actual interview.
Oh, wow.
So we did that for 170 students. And out of that 170, like 20 of them got selected for the program. And so that it was like a eureka moment that this meant that I could actually create something that could really impact the lives of people. So I started trying to build the most comprehensive scholarship database for Africans to access quality education, because I myself knew that there is a level of education that you will not be able to have until you travel, because even traveling is an experience on its own. Getting to live with a new set of people, adapting to a new set of rules, all those things are like if a type of experience and education that really makes a person more global. Exactly. So I realized that Africans need to move around. You don't have to go to the US, but you need to, like if you're in Nigeria, you need to go to South Africa or go to Ghana or go to Senegal. Like you need to move around in order to really be fully like well-rounded and be able to have a better sense of how the world works. So that's like one of the core reasons why we're doing what we're doing at the Flourish Opportunities Network. So far what we did was that we compiled up to 15,000 scholarships in the database, and we've started building the platform that would allow people to be able to access all those scholarships. And we're trying to do it in such a way that they can access it free of charge. We're still working on that. We're not done yet. Then we started initiatives to support undergraduates with scholarships. So far, we've helped around 30 people. We collaborate with alumni of different universities in different parts of Nigeria, and then they fund students in their alma mater. So it's like a crowd-funded scholarship initiative where people that are alumni of different universities can sponsor students in their alma mater. So that was how we structured it, and it's been working so far. So this year, we already have someone that wants to give 1 million for the most innovative project in FUTA. And we also have other projects like that are still in the works that we're yet to announce. So I would say that that's why I started. I believe very strongly that education holds the key to social development in Africa. The more educated people are, the more they're going to come up with solutions that can solve the lasting problems that they all have. The more educated a person is, the less likely they are to complain. Instead, they will try to do something to solve the problem. Because we have a large majority of Nigerians complaining about bad governance and nobody actually does anything about it. But if we have a large majority educated to a certain degree, I think that we're going to see a lot more action. You know, oh, we're thinking of grassroots development. So people are not happy with what the local government chairman is doing. Okay, what can we do on our own? Okay, we can push for laws that allow people to be able to fix the road instead of waiting for the government, for example. We can push for laws that allow us to put water systems instead of waiting for the government. So if my estate agrees to contribute, the local government can come and say we should pay them for fixing our water. Because I mean, we've seen funny things like that happen in Nigeria.
I know.
Right. So I think that I think the more educated people are, yeah, very unbelievable, very unbelievable. I think it will change everything. I think it's going to change everything. So that's why I'm very committed, and I'm going to continue to build this to ensure that we get to that stage eventually.
Interesting. So I want to talk about your African focused business, you know, because when you were talking about tech now, I see you ventured outside Nigeria, talking about traveling, education, the exposure. I believe in that myself, you know, and it's helped me a lot. I've seen a lot of Africa, and one of the reasons why I'm worried is that even though you Gen Zs, Gen X, all the new breed people are doing extraordinary things, there's really no encouragement from the older generation, actually, or maybe let me say government, because there's a lot to tap. Because when you look at the US, for example, and in Europe, when you look at all the Ivy League schools, you discover that Africans are competing very, very well. They're not just competing, they're on top of, you know, their classes, irrespective of the discipline. So that's why we really appreciate what you're doing. We'll celebrate you. So back to African focused business, what unique challenges and opportunities, yeah, do you see in supporting businesses across Africa? Because it's obvious now you're a continental man, and I see you going global very soon.
So I would say that the biggest opportunity is social development, like development at scale. I think that government policies can't solve poverty. And I think that the government would not like the people to know this because they want them to continue to see them as the saviors. Government will come and save us. Even in the US, the government didn't solve poverty. It was entrepreneurship that solved poverty.
Very true.
One of the most revered entrepreneurs in history is Henry Ford, who first created the T model. That was like one of the early cars in those days. The T model became like one of the best sellers. You know, he said selling the cars to different parts of the US as well as exporting it. You know, in that year, like sometime after the Toyota also came out, they were even competing in the number of cars that were sold. That's how successful the T model Ford was, right? But then the idea is that if you read the book called Prosperity Paradox by Clayton Christensen and Efosa Ojomo, who is also a Nigerian, by the way, So Mr. Professor Clayton, was a professor at Stanford. I think he's late now. What he was saying in the book is that after he created the T model Ford, Henry Ford realized that they didn't have good roads for people to drive the cars, because people are not asking him, so if we buy the car, where are we going to drive it? Yeah, it was a market problem, because they loved the cars, they loved the innovation, but they didn't know where to drive the cars. So he had to start to collaborate with government to start building the road so that people would have roads to drive the cars. Crazy stuff. Entrepreneurship. The government didn't invent the T model Ford, an entrepreneur did. But because he wanted to sell and people were complaining that there were no roads, so he became actively involved in building the roads. So that's sort of how it works. It's like market creating innovation. That's what he calls it, market creating innovation. When the innovation is so large that because it has been created, other forms of businesses are also built on top of it. That's the type of innovation that changes economies permanently. So because the roads were built, more people can transit. And because more people can transit, hotels can be built, filling stations can be built. There are so many other types of businesses that are tied to the road. So the same thing with Rockefeller, when Rockefeller was drilling oil. So he needed to move his oil to other parts of the US, right? During the Industrial Revolution. So they had to start building rail tracks for the trains, because the trains had to move the oil. That was before they realized that they could use pipes, and the pipes became an innovation. That was way back before then. They were using trains to move the oil, and they were building the train tracks because he had to move the oil. So the same thing applies to Africa. If the entrepreneurs realize the problem to the market that they're trying to, sort of serve, they are going to end up building the innovation that would allow them to efficiently serve the market. And in so doing, they are building the innovation that will sustain the rest of Africa. So that's how I see it. That's like one of the reasons why I'm very Africa focused. I believe this development that we're looking for, it's already in our hands. All people need to do is they have to take bold steps and start building it. The Airtel guy, Mr. Mo Ibrahim, he also wrote about him in the Prosperity Paradox book, because there were a lot of stories of different people that built lots of innovations in that book. So he said that when they came to Africa, I think it was Sudan at the time, and there was no cell tower, there was no infrastructure for them to build with. So he was using helicopters and going from village to village to set up the towers that would allow people to be able to. I'm telling you, yes, because they were saying there was no market for cell phones in Africa. That's what they said. And he was like, no, I just think that they've not yet like experienced technology, that once they do, there'll be a market for it. So then he came down, he had to like do a lot of things manually. He built the infrastructure. And because he did that, the competitors were not able to come. But it was because he did that. So African entrepreneurs need to be thinking about it like that. We don't have everything that the other developed countries have, but what we have is opportunity and a very large youth population, young people, brilliant, that are looking for what to do. So we have talent. We have talent in Africa. So all we need to do is to figure out a way to tap that large pool of talent to create sustaining innovation for the rest of Africa. So that's what I think. So models like what I'm doing with the profitable lawyer, training more lawyers to be more profitable, it accomplishes two things. One is that it ensures that the lawyers know how to do business, because most lawyers know how to represent their clients, but they're not good business people. Is that if they have profitable law firms, they will hire other lawyers, reducing unemployment, and as well teaching those people the standards, so that over time we'll have a new generation of lawyers that are both business savvy as well as law savvy.
Wow. I mean, you said it all, but I mean, everybody, one of the problem investors talk about in Africa, I mean, when you talk about FDI, foreign direct investment to country in Africa, Nigeria, Senegal, and what have you, regulation, bureaucracy, and all that, you know. So how do you navigate diverse regulatory environment and the cultural nuances that comes with it. How
Okay.
do you do that? Yeah.
I think that the most effective way to work in Africa with respect to regulations is to always try to stay ahead of it. Because in Nigeria, for example, regulations can be very uncertain with respect to fintechs, especially. So the regulatory frameworks can be very uncertain because government can change their mind today and come up with something new. So what you can do as a business that's operating in one of those industries that have a lot of uncertainty is to constantly account for abrupt changes. So if, for example, they want you to increase your cybersecurity measures, so instead of waiting for it to become a law, you can on your own start trying to do that even before it happens. Because when it does happen and you don't adjust on time, you might start paying fines. You might have to start paying fines to the government, which will reduce the overall capital that you have. So that's what I would say is to be proactive. That's like the only way to like work effectively in Nigeria because of the uncertainty of regulations. Then the second thing is to work with very good lawyers or law firms because most of them have been following the regulations for a very long time. So they can sort of tell the direction the government is going because sometimes they also have contact in different ministries and sometimes they even invite them to work on the policies. So sometimes the lawyers can also be aware that the regulatory changes are coming. So that way, if they have the insider information, they can tell you so you can start to adjust your business accordingly. I think that that's like a very smart way to try to stay ahead of regulations while operating in Africa because regulations will always be uncertain as far as Africa is concerned until it gets to a certain point, but regulations will likely continue to be uncertain.
Okay,
It
fantastic.
affects investors, by the way. I say it affects investors because investors don't want to invest if they are not sure of the regulation that affects the business they've invested in. But I think one of the ways that people can deal with it is by sort of communicating upfront to the investor instead of waiting for them to find out that there's regulatory uncertainty. So even the first time you have a conversation with them, you tell them that yes, Africa or Nigeria or the countries you're trying to operate in have a bit of regulatory uncertainty, but that these are the steps that you're taking to mitigate that risk. So that way, it's more like you're already aware, but you're taking steps to manage it. So that makes you come off more competent and powerful to the investor than if you just come up one day and tell them that they've changed regulation and you had no idea about it and it's now affected their investment interests.
So in a nutshell, you have to be transparent, right?
Yes, I'm proactive.
I'm proactive.
Transparent and proactive.
I'm proactive. All right. So what's the role of AI in all that you're doing? Techpreneurship, law, and all that. What's the role of artificial intelligence in all this?
So I would say where AI is playing a big role right now is with respect to the work I'm doing in Blackrest, because we're currently trying to develop a legal tech for people that are building startups in different parts of Africa. So we get questions all the time on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram from different founders asking us questions about co-founder conflicts, the conflicts they have with their other team members. We get questions on compliance. We get questions on data protection, intellectual property. So we want to create like an AI model, just the same way you have ChatGPT, we could call it Law GPT or whatever. And then people can just ask it. Okay. So those questions they're asking us, they can ask that platform and the platform will respond. I think that it will make the work more efficient as well as help a lot more entrepreneurs because we are not online 24/7, but the platform can be online.
Oh, okay. That's good. Now let's look into the future of Nigeria, future of Africa, Let's start with Nigeria. Yeah, well, now it's clear that Africa is like a battleground for all the developed countries now. Africa was majorly colonized by Britain, France, maybe Belgium in Congo, Kinshasa, maybe one or two Spanish colonies and all that. Maybe one or two Portuguese. I'm not too sure. Okay, I think Cape Verde is Portuguese. So now the colonialists are still here, our African minerals is still plundered. The oil is not serving the purpose it's supposed to serve. You know, the Russians are here, the Chinese are here, the plundering goes on. Countries like Congo, Kinshasa, former Zaire, they've never known peace. That's a country that there's almost no resources known to man. I mean, mineral resources that you don't have in that country. You know, so does it mean that, you know, going forward into the future, does it mean that Africa can break even economically with tech? Is that the leeway? Is that what's going to sprint or leapfrog Africa into the global market? What do you think? We have to break into the world market somehow. Yeah. Apart from our
that's
resources.
true, but I have an unpopular. I actually have an unpopular opinion about this. And I think Mr. Victor Asamoah also shares such a similar view. I think that technology will make a difference. I believe that because we have a lot of young talent, like we have talent, young people that can like really build out a lot of innovation. But I think that sometimes we are sort of missing the point on what's really going to drive this type of development. So what we are seeing, I'm saying it from my perspective. I'm here in Lagos, by the way. I'm not in the UK anymore. I've seen a lot of smart people like myself move to the US and move to the UK. In fact, it's so bad they live in the UK and they live in the US. Why that is not bad, but for Africa, that means that we don't have as much access to them, right, as people over there do. So in the future, based on this trend, if the top talent continue to get the EB1 visa or the global talent visa, as the case may be, to travel, what will happen is that the environment, like I said before, when we started this conversation, conducive environment, the environment of the places that they are living in will be more conducive for them to build there, not here. If we want Africa to have a tech future, we have to solve the fundamental structural issues. Fun fact in Lagos, if you stop traffic, tech innovation will thrive. Fun fact. What is the connection between traffic and innovation? It's because people have to get to work. Some of them work in their offices on some days. And if they spend 2 hours of unproductive hours idling away in traffic, by the time they get to the office, they don't have enough creative juices. So they're tired. They're mentally tired by the time they get to work. These are structural issues. They have nothing to do with technology. They're structural issues. Okay, someone was working in the office, but it's getting late. So they want to go home so that they can just eat, say hello to their parents or their sibling or whatever, and continue working. And then they get home and there's no power. If the person doesn't have a generator or doesn't have like an inverter, they might have to start trying to figure out other alternative sources of power. So that's already very stressful, and it will make them less productive. The structural deficiencies have to be fixed first. If they are fixed, the other things will naturally thrive. So that's what I would say. I would say that the future of Africa is dependent on how well we're able to fix the core structural issues. It may be crazy, but some people wouldn't mind staying in Lagos if there was power, if there was clean water, if there was no traffic. They would not mind not traveling. They would actually not mind. And if that is the case for a lot of smart young people, then Africa has a chance, because it means that these people are staying here, they're employing people here, they're doing the innovation here, so we all win. I think that that's the approach that I would take. I'm actually interested in getting into governance like sometime in my 40s or whatever, but that's like the approach that I would take. I think that the infrastructures are the first things that need to be addressed. The people that are building the innovation are doing it in spite of the challenges. And when people build like that, they don't have any gratitude to the environment, because all the environment gave them was stress. All the environment gave them was stress. But if they are building and the ecosystem is supportive. They're getting credit access because they are startups. Like, let's say you can get up to credit access of 20 million because you're a startup that is building AI. You know, tomorrow, if the other guy becomes a unicorn, he will say that it's because the Nigerian government created a law that allowed them to get up to 20 million in credit access, that's why they were able to stay alive long enough to hit their big client. That's what they would say. But if someone succeeds today, they will not be able to say that it's because the Lagos state government offered support or because the Nigerian government offered support. So they have no loyalty. So when they leave, they don't care and they're not coming back.
I feel you. I feel you. Yeah,
but that's the truth. They get acquired and they leave. It's really a war for talent. It's not really a war of like physical resources as such. The 21st century battle is a war for talent. By creating global talent visa, EP1, they are fishing all our top talent from everywhere.
Absolutely.
That's really what they're doing. They're
Absolutely.
fishing them away. And when the top talent leaves, the country is left with average. And when a country is left with average people, they can't be competitive globally.
I agree with you.
Can't be competitive globally.
There's actually, if we have a fantastic rail system, or you say rails, I mean a good rails, good speed train and all that, and these things are not expensive. Then so I think Ethiopia has something like that, South Africa, possibly Egypt. You know, there's nothing wrong in living with Ibadan and still working in Lagos. You understand?
There's nothing
or
wrong.
Living in Abeokuta, and you know, it's like you are living in Ipswich, in London, outside London, and you take a train to London, you know, maybe 1 hour, 1 hour, 30 minutes stops, you're there, you know. So I agree with you. I mean, we have infrastructural issue, we have leadership issue, and I'm excited by the fact that you said in your 40s, you say you're 28 now, your 40s you go to politics, right? Governor. I look forward to that. You know, what you just told me now means that the future of Nigeria is actually very bright. I used to be a pessimist, I'm telling you. Now, every day, my hope is, you know, being reinvigorated by people like you. Because the truth of the matter is that Nigeria, with the largest concentration of Black people, with all the Nigerians' brains I see in the diaspora, there's really no reason for us to be where we are right now, at least technologically. There's actually almost no country in the world today where you don't have a Nigerian or an African, strategically speaking, that is helping that country to do something extraordinary. Even in China, Iran, the whole of Europe, I mean, America, Canada, those ones are even overwhelming, you know, we're everywhere, you know. So, Osita, thank you for coming to Startup and Innovators on Atlantic Discuss. I'm going to be disturbing you now, you know. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to leave all your details in the chat box for this episode so that people that want to reach out to you, you know, I've learned quite a bit from you, you know, and I'm sure that a lot of people listening, you know. But one last thing, what message do you have for the people of Africa going forward? Do you have any message of hope? You know, because a lot of people seem forlorn and they've given up and all that. That's why people your generation. Do you have any message for them?
I actually do. So there's a quote. There's a quote from a very popular author. I can't remember his name now. So what he said was that Rome was not great. Like Rome was not great because Rome was special. Rome was great because they loved her. So that's what I'm going to leave every young African out there with. Africa is not going to be great because of Africa's resources. Africa will be great because Africans that live in Africa love Africa. That's the reason. The BRIC coalition and the European Union, all these things that we're seeing, there are people that want to dominate. You can't be telling a Nigerian that you need to get visas to go to South Africa. If we're saying that, we're joking. We're not serious about actually becoming truly global. That's the only way to dominate. You have a coalition, everybody's interest is aligned. There's nobody discriminating anybody. If we're able to have all that, I believe that people would leave the US to come live in Africa. Like that's what will start to happen. People will leave the US and come live in Africa. Africa is like one of the only continents that has a very, very, like, very few like very few natural disasters in comparison to their peers in Asia and North America. We don't have forest fires that wipe out like almost 100 houses. We don't have anything like that. We don't have floods that kill thousands of people. We don't have earthquakes that destroy houses worth billions of dollars. We don't have any of that. And we have community. We have community. A lot of countries are very individualistic. Everybody's just working. Everybody's just paying their bills. Nobody's talking to each other. In a bus, everybody's quiet. I mean, if you've traveled before, I'm sure you can relate to this. Everybody's just quiet. Everybody's minding their business. You know, Africa is blessed. Africa is blessed because we're very community oriented. You go to Ghana, somebody will greet you and tell you, Charlie, how are you doing? People will greet you. You go to South Africa, the same thing. You go to Senegal, the same thing. So Africa is blessed, and Africa will grow if we all put hands together in our own small ways. Don't feel like you have to become the president to do anything. In your own small space, to support them to be better. The more we do that, the more we'll start to see the Africa of our dreams. Thank you very much for inviting me to this session.
And I really love this. I love having you to Osita James. You've lived up to the billing. You're a fantastic guy, ambitious, you know your onions, and you're doing very great things. We'll keep working with you. It's not just going to be one interview and we're over here. We'll promote you. You promote your business, and anywhere I hear anybody needs help legally, go and see Osita, man. That's Osita. That's the whole idea. And the message from us here is very simple, especially for people of African origin. We are the architect of our misfortune. You understand? Nobody is going to develop Africa for you. You have to do it yourself. It's a level ground, really, if we know what we're doing. For Nigeria, strategically, it's a failure of leadership, nothing more, nothing less. I mean, a society where the election doesn't count, it's just ludicrous, it's just unbelievable. And these are major templates for success, Ghana is a fantastic example. They transition so well, look at what just happened. I mean, I always say it, I'm jealous. I'm really jealous. People are leaving America every day with Black Americans moving to Ghana. Some woman that just invested in Nigeria had entire investment demolished for no just reason, I mean, even if maybe she bought from the wrong person or something, there's a way to go around this. Look at what Dangote is doing. Nigerian government is frustrating Dangote. That guy, the landmark guy that built some mega tourist resort, just demolish. Those things don't bring investment anywhere. If you don't encourage your own, you are on your own. Thank you, everybody. It's a wrap. See you next week, Wednesday. Goodbye. Thank you, Osita. God bless you. See you again.
All right. Thank you.